just recently finished watching Across the Spiderverse, and that movie was some absolute hot fire. My boy Miguel was looking like a straight brick shithouse. I've already started hitting the gym so that I could be as sexy as Miguel O'Hara. No matter how good these movies are, never can anyone forget where most people were first introduced to Miguel O'Hara and where the first Spiderverse came from. Besides the one from the 90s TV show. Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions is a cult classic game that starred 4 different Spider-Man for the first time in media before it became at this point a yearly traditional event. I swear, every year now it feels like there's a new Spider-Verse something dropping. Anyways, Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions starred 4 Spider-Men from different universes looking to collect shattered pieces of the Tablet of Order and Chaos that Spider-Man destroyed when fighting Mysterio in the beginning of the game. It is now up to 4 Spider-Man to team up and hunt down the pieces that have landed in their universe. The Amazing Spider-Man is our first Spider-Man that we meet, the one that breaks the tablet, and is the Spider-Man that we all love and recognize from Universe 616. Then we have Ultimate Spider-Man, the one we know from the Ultimate Comics and universe, but to differentiate him from our 616 Spider-Man, he was given the Venom symbiote in-game, with its parasitic tendencies held back by Madam Web. Then we've got Nick Cage Spider-Man Noir, a Spider-Man that lives in the Noir universe during the time of the Great Depression. You may recognize him from Into the Spider-Verse, where he hit the sauciest combo you ever seen in your life. Last we got Miguel O'Hara himself, who lives in the year 2099, acting as that time in Universe's Spider-Man. We even see Miguel being given a spider sense throughout the duration of the game, as he normally doesn't have one. This game is separated into 12 specialized linear levels, each topped with a big boss fight at the end, and a final boss with all 4 Spider-Man against Mysterio. Each Spider-Man gets 3 levels, each all with unique enemies, locations, and best of all, bosses and enemies of Spider-Man. When somebody normally thinks of a Spider-Man game, they think of a big open world in New York, side missions, spontaneous crimes, and a very narratively driven story. While this game doesn't have really any of that at all, it still managed to be a hit among the fans with its fun levels, set pieces, gameplay, and interactions between all the characters. Speaking of gameplay, all 4 Spider-Man were split off into 4 unique gameplay styles, all of them with their own animations and different themes in their level in order to keep them all separate but fun, and to keep the game fresh from ever getting boring. Amazing Spider-Man had more platform elements in his level. Ultimate Spider-Man's levels were a lot more combat-based with waves and swarms of enemies spawning at once, and Ultimate's Rage Meter. Noir was completely stealth-based a la the Arkham series, and 2099's levels were a bit more gimmicky along with its free-falling segments. Each of them were fun to play, which only added to the overall quality of the game. And when you finally defeat Mysterio and hear the late great Stan Lee sound you off in success, it just couldn't help you wanting more. And yeah, over a decade later and we haven't gotten more at all. Edge of Time was a bit of a spiritual sequel to the game and was actually originally planned to be our said sequel, but with only a year to release a brand new sequel, the developers decided to only focus on Miguel and 616 Peter and kept the canon of these 2 games separate. Sure, there's also the absolutely spectacular Insomniac series with all this Spider-Verse media out there, but why don't we pay some respect to the originator of the Spider-Verse with a brand new sequel that I've dubbed Spider-Verse Shattered Dimensions 2 or something like that. I know you all may be surprised that I'm doing a full-fledged game sequel on here, considering as of now, I've only done fighting game rosters. But hey, this show is called GameTime, and hey man, it's time to make a game because it's about time that we got a brand new Spider-Verse sequel. This is my first time doing something like this. I want to set some ground rules for this hypothetical sequel that I'm creating in order to make this more interesting. For this game, none of the villains in the first game will be making a return. That's right, no Kraven, no Carnage, not even Dr. Octopus. The first Shattered Dimensions was the first introduction for a lot of new characters to the people that played it. When I first played Shattered Dimensions as a kid, it was my first time seeing Spider-Man Noir, 2099, Kraven, Hammerhead, Hobgoblin. I know it was a lot of people's first introduction to Deadpool, and even Madam Web, so I want to keep this theme going. Spider-Man has probably the most extensive rogue galleries in comics, only rivaled by Batman, so let's put some spotlights on some new characters for this game, new or old. The next rule I have is that if at any point you enjoy this video, you need to show it by liking, commenting, and subscribing and telling me exactly what you would like to see next, or what you would have liked to see in this game. Listen man, I don't make the rules, I just fuck them. It's what you gotta do, but is that really all we're gonna do? Copy and paste the same structure from the last game, just with new villains and levels? That could definitely work, as that's exactly what a lot of people want. But if I'm coming to you with this video and headcanon, I'm not just gonna do something that cookie cutter, nah. I'm gonna come to you with something even grander. This is Spiderverse, and what Spiderverse would be complete without the spider person who's been at the forefront of it all? Yes sir, in this brand new game, to switch things up and to really invoke that grander feeling of a long awaited sequel, I vote we do that by adding a new gameplay style. What do I mean by that? Well, exactly what I said. Let's add a new gameplay style by adding a new Spider-Man. But just who would that Spider-Man be? Well, this one is obvious, but Miles Morales. Miles Morales will be our 5th Spider-Man in this Shattered Dimension sequel, fit with his own moveset, levels, bosses, and costumes. Miles' Venom ability and his ability to turn invisible could really add some dynamic gameplay to help keep this fresh and exciting, and keep him different from the other Spider-Man. You may think, but Ultimate Spider-Man is the Spider-Man from the Miles universe and he dies too. Not to mention, you can't call them both Ultimate Spider-Man. Well, I mean, universes are endless. That's the whole point of the Spider-Verse itself. So we could just say Ultimate Spider-Man is from a universe similar to Miles' universe, except that Peter never dies and Miles never becomes Spider-Man in that timeline. And then you could call Miles the Ultimate Spider-Man and, I don't know, change the Symbiote Spider-Man to like the Spectacular Spider-Man, or even just call him the Symbiote Spider-Man in the story. It's not that hard. For the purposes of this video, I will be referring to all the Spider-Man as the Amazing Spider-Man for the 616, Spectacular Spider-Man for the Symbiote version, Noir 2099, and Ultimate Spider-Man for Miles Morales. Now, even if this second game gets made, I still don't see a third one ever getting made regardless of how good it does. So I vote let's get massive with it. The first game had 12 levels, 3 for each character, and the Mysterio boss fight. Let's do that, include Miles' levels, but add another stage of levels for each character, meaning each character gets 4 levels each, leaving us 20 levels, a whole 8 more than last game, and our final boss. But speaking of final boss, who's our final boss gonna be? In comics, like I said, Spider-Man has one of the deepest pools of rogues, but how many of them would be strong enough that they would be a threat to multiple Spider-Man in different dimensions and require them to team up? Actually, better question, who was the villain in the original Spider-Verse? Well, that would be none other than Morlun the Spider Slayer. If his name didn't make it obvious enough already, Morlun is one of Spider-Man's most powerful enemies who's made it his goal to travel different multiverses, hunting down and killing all the spider people in each universe. He is a psychic vampire with superhuman attributes, the ability to absorb life force energy, and he's essentially immortal. In the Spider-Verse, he and his family, the Inhibitors, look to kill all Spider-Man, causing them to band together and stop him, which makes this the perfect story to use as our base for our game, and make Morlun the perfect villain to tie everything together. The inclusion of Morlun and Miles adds the perfect start and through line to our story. You could start the game off with a cutscene, not of the Amazing Spider-Man, but of Ultimate Spider-Man, Miles Morales. You can have a cutscene where Miles is training or swinging with the Peter from his universe and set up that he hasn't been Spider-Man for long or completely learned the ropes. Then have Morlun ambush them where he kills Miles Peter of his universe, a callback to how Peter in the Ultimate comics dies, causing Miles to have to step up as Spider-Man. This makes Morlun an immediate threat and makes Miles emotional throughout the story and gives him a reason for revenge. One thing that isn't concrete about this story is this story doesn't include a real reason for Spider-Man to be fighting all these villains in his levels. In the first game, they were looking for pieces of the tablet, and each villain in the levels had gotten to the tablet before Spider-Man, causing them to fight. Not to mention, each level had 2 main boss fights, one against the villain like how they normally are, and one against a powered-up villain by the tablet. So how do we get around these issues? Well, what I would just suggest is just say that Morlun recruited these villains from different universes to hunt down these spider people, incapacitate them, and bring them to him so that he could devour them. And then as a cute callback to the first game, you can have Morlun or a member of his family pop in and give the villains the Tablet of Order and Chaos, powering them up for the final boss fight of the levels. Except this time, rather than a piece of the tablet, they've now got the whole tablet, powering them up even more and raising the stakes of the level. Speaking of levels, we've got 20 levels to talk about, and it's already been like, what, 10 minutes? So let's finally get started with our first level. Sorry, that was a lie. I know y'all trying to get into these levels and see what villains I have in store for y'all. But before we even get started with this first level, I'm thinking between each 5 levels we have playable or full cutscene run-ins with Morlun as he becomes more and more powerful and he shows us that he is catching these spider totems and gaining more power because of it. We can even use this to tell the story of the Spider-Man working together. While the last game was great, it didn't do much to show all Spider-Men working together. It was more like they were just talking while all fighting at the same time, if that makes sense. Here, we can have 2099 be attacked by Morlun. No free fall section here though, sorry. This can be a short and sweet mini boss where we try and mow down Morlun with 2099 but realize that he is far too powerful for us to combat head on. Have him easily overpower Miguel and even almost devour him until Miguel desperately bites him with his paralyzing fangs, allowing him to retreat from Morlun until he and the rest of the Spideys are called forth by Madam Web and asked to team up once again. You can even have Miguel say something like you are gonna need some serious power to take that guy down and have Spectacular Venom Man volunteer since he is arguably the strongest one.
I am Spider-Man.
Sorry, but I'm all in, and you leave me no choice.
Now the first level, finally. Like I said, we're not going to be reusing villains from the first game, so that means for Amazing Spider-Man, he won't be fighting Kraven, Juggernaut, or Sandman again, or even villains like Dr. Octopus and Scorpion, so we're going to have to reach deep for the Amazing Spider-Man and the other 19 levels in this game. For Amazing Spider-Man's first villain, I've chosen Molten Man. The last time I even remember seeing this character in Spider-Man media was in the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon. Granted, I could be wrong and he could have been in something else, so let's give him an appearance in a Spider-Man video game as the boss of the first level. This could be a great tutorial level for a player learning or relearning how to play this game or play as Amazing Spider-Man. This also fits in line with Amazing Spider-Man's gameplay and level design, as he and most of his bosses uses the environment to his advantage, which we can see here with water barrels being strewn around the map during the boss fight, which you can use to cool down Molten Man, allowing you to attack. This enemy can make for some great platforming elements, as you have to web zip from rubble to rubble before it charges up, or even platform out of a burning building. You can even add set pieces where Spider-Man has to save victims in a certain amount of time before they are burned alive by Molten Man, and once Molten Man is powered up with the tablet, things could get real crazy. I can see this final boss fight as something similar to the Electro fight in the first game, damn and all.
I am Spider-Man.
Think I'd skip town? Give New York to freaks like you? No way! I just needed an equalizer. And now? I've got it! Say hello to the seismic harness construction resource. Or, as I like to call it, the Shocker!
Now we're on to Spectacular Symbiote Spider-Man. If you ask me, he probably had the most unique cast of villains and levels in the first game. Electro, Deadpool, and then Carnage. Maybe not as much Electro, but those are some cool villains, and they made for some of the best levels in the game, so how can we continue that? I'm gonna be honest. His first level is gonna be against Shocker. While Shocker is the perfect cannon fodder to use as the first level tutorial to learn how to use Symbiote Man, that's not the reason I'm using him. After you beat him in the first boss fight, or the second after he's powered up, you need to have a scene where Shocker starts running away, and Spectacular Spider-Man just starts chasing him down.
Get back here, Shocker! Shocker! You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
Literally, that's all you gotta do, and it will get people talking about the game and make so many goofy ass fans happy.
I am Spider-Man.
Please, you're the big man.
In my life, I've been called many names. My favorite is Tombstone.
Noir's levels had a bit more story than everyone else's in that all of his villains were connected in some way, so I want to do a similar thing here. Let's make his first villain Tombstone, a right-hand man to the leader of the underground crime syndicate running amok in Noir's universe as the leader of his own gang. Tombstone perfectly fits the aura of Noir's universe, and his mastery of firearms could cause Noir to use his stuff to gain an advantage against them, fighting against his gangs who are armed as well all throughout the level. Then he could power up, making his toughness and durability nigh unstoppable, causing Noir to do something big to bring him down, like a big set piece, like a train running him over, or something grand that contrasts with the usual quiet ruthlessness of the Noir universe.
I am
Lost and alone, I can save them. I can cure them. There's no need to stop me, Peter.
In the first game, 2099 fought Scorpion in the future, who was actually a mutated Scorpion instead of just a man in a mech suit who wanted to turn back into a human. Now, who does that remind you of? Lizard is a perfect Spider-Man villain to help fill out a roster like this. I don't know if Nueva York has any sewers, but they better add some real quickly. Jumping in and out of sewers, trailing the Lizard, jumping from the sewers back into the air onto flying cars, watching the Lizard try and jump from car to car looking to escape. You can even do a free fall segment from you falling from the highest heights in Nueva York, diving down to the city floors, ending with you falling through a manhole as it ominously closes, cutting to the next section of the level, or even the first boss fight. Shit, the first game appears like it borrows a lot from the Arkham game, so why don't we borrow Arkham Asylum's Killer Croc segments for a part in this level before we fight Lizard?
I am Spider-Man.
While we borrowed something from Arkham Asylum, let's go on the other side of the spectrum and borrow a villain from Spider-Man Miles Morales for Miles' first villain. The Tinkerer was a golden age obscure Spider-Man villain who was brought back into the public eye and given new life when it turned out the Tinkerer was back and was none other than Miles' former friend Phineas. Now, while we are bringing Tinkerer back, it does not have to be Finn again. You could keep similar themes from the design, power, and character of Phineas as Miles' first villain for the game. You can even have callbacks to the Finn boss fights by having segments during this level on a bridge or a building with great backdrops, allowing us to get used to Miles' gameplay style, as unlike everyone else, this will be everybody's first time playing as Miles. With the first 5 levels done, it's time for another run-in with Morlun. Here we can have Morlun jump Spectacular Spider-Man, where Spectacular charges him straight on with the symbiote. You could stage this as a boss fight where Spider-Man wails on Morlun, but Morlun clearly overpowers him with no sweat, similar to 2099. Not even symbiote Spider-Man could take this guy down, having devoured more totems and becoming more powerful. A cutscene then triggers where something from the environment distracts Morlun, like he's walking in the middle of the street and a car hits him. Though it doesn't phase him, it does distract him long enough where Spider-Man web kicks him and thinks to himself, man, that guy doesn't pay attention, does he? Before making a quick escape. I've said it once and I'll say it again, I'm not a game developer or a story writer really, unless you count the 5 different fan fictions I currently have uploaded on Wattpad. So I'm sure there's probably a better way to convey this idea of Morlun not being trusted to look both ways before he crosses the street because he doesn't pay attention. But either way, you guys should be picking up what I'm dropping, right? Anyways, let's move on to Phase 2 with our next amazing Spider-Man level.
I am Spider-Man.
One of Spidey's more recognizable villains, you may be surprised that he was nowhere to be found in the original Shattered Dimensions, but when you think about it, he kinda was. Our OG Spider-Man's last level was against the Juggernaut, who was a massive surprise since Juggernaut is really an X-Men villain before anything else, and he really just fell out of place when compared to everyone else in the game. It kind of feels like this level was originally meant for Rhino, but sometime in development they then changed it to Juggernaut, maybe because he was a more recognizable face, or maybe it was to coincide with some X-Men release when the game first dropped in 2010. Granted, I haven't found anything in interviews or nothing like that that says this, but this is just what I think. Either way, this one's kind of a freebie considering we already have the formula for a fun bruiser level in front of us. Just pop Spider and Rhino down in an area where you can witness tons of destruction and have you toss down pieces of rubble at Rhino in order to slow him down and to weaken him. Bonus points if you can add a set piece like Rhino charging through the whole city like the beginning of Miles Morales PS4.
I am Spider-Man.
Finally.
This character was brought back into the mainstream limelight with his role in Spider-Man PS4 as the main antagonist of the first half of the game. He can use his powers to help weaken symbiote Spidey's psyche, cause him to battle his inner thoughts. Towards the end of the level, you can even have him fight both Mr. Negative and the symbiote's self-destructive thoughts. If we can have Venom Spider catch another helicopter during this level, that would be absolutely fantastic as well. You might be thinking, oh, these levels are full of references and just rehashing ideas and moments from the other games instead of creating something original. You may be right, but in my eyes, I see this sequel in the Spider-Verse as the celebration of all the years of Spider-Man and his timelessness and longevity over the past decades. We've had tons of different iterations and stories told over the years for Spider-Man, and that won't be stopping anytime soon. So why not embrace that by taking this one time to celebrate all these different eras in Spider-Man's history and bringing it all together in one game in order to show him respect and thanks. The games, the TV shows, they've all made Spider-Man who he is today, so why not acknowledge that? Anyway, long-winded speech over with Noir's next level.
I am Spider-Man. The one and only. Got it.
Chameleon hasn't been seen in Spider-Man media outside the comics for how long? This is a serious question I'm asking, by the way. Someone comment down below when the last time was that the Chameleon was in a TV show or game or anything. Let's bring him back into the public eye with a level in this game, and he would be a perfect fit for a battle against Noir. Chameleon's whole gimmick is that he's a master of disguise, like Hush from the Batman series, and just imagine what you could do with that, especially in a stealth setting. You could have Noir save a bunch of hostages from armed guards, only for one of them to start attacking you, kicking off the first battle with the Chameleon. You can have Noir chase down Chameleon into a room filled with roaming henchmen, only to realize that the Chameleon disguised himself as one of the guards, and now you have to hunt them down all down one by one, until you figure out which one is him. There's a lot of fun ideas you could do with a character like Chameleon in Noir's setting that it'd actually be kind of a crime if he was left out of this game. You can even power him up at the end of the level, allowing him to switch into enemies Noir has fought in the last games like Vulture, Goblin, and Hammerhead, and gaining their powers, causing you to have to adapt to his different fighting patterns on the fly.
I am Spider-Man.
How much rejection is a girl supposed to take?
Black Cat? I was praying I was wrong. Felicia? What have they...
Help me, Spider. They gave me an anti-aging drug. For decades, made me over.
Spider Sense going nuts.
Black Cat as Miguel's next villain might be a bit of an odd choice, but it makes sense considering he fought a female Dr. Octopus and was the only one to actually fight a female in the last game. So with Black Cat's inclusion, we'll have hit our quota of one female in this roster. That was a joke, please don't hurt. It also makes sense considering there was a Black Cat in the 2099 future in the Edge of Time game that was a clone of the original Felicia Hardy with genetic modifications, and although she was from the future, we never actually see her and Miguel fight. You can chase Felicia all down throughout the city, from rooftops to flying cars, and even fight her on the side of the skyscrapers. And do I even have to mention a skydiving segment for this level? You know who's going to be zooming down through the air hot on Black Cat's trail looking to bring her down. Literally. I can imagine her and Miguel having some really fun banter too that may even reference the events of Edge of Time, which was a spiritual sequel to the original Shattered Dimensions.
Spider-Man.
Thank you for another diamond, my little techno-bee.
For Miles' next level, I'm bringing out one obscure pick. You know, I was joking about the one female quota. We got two. We doubled it. Madame Swarm was a Nazi agent who used the power of science and a magical totem to essentially make herself a living beehive and give her control of all bees. She was even killed by Miles Morales in the comics, meaning they have a connection, so she'd be the perfect villain for our second level. Her powers are fairly unique even among the rogues gallery that Spider-Man has, and she could have some really unique elements in her level. Like Miles fighting off tons of bee enemies as they are covered by a dome completely filled with bees, or a battle against Madame Warp where she places hives everywhere causing you to have to venom strike them to slow her forces down before you can make your way to Web. You can even add some stealth segments like Ultimate Spider-Man going invisible and Madame Web decides to spew honey everywhere in order to lure him out of hiding, and now Miles has the platform without touching any honey or else it will get stuck on him and Madame Web will be able to find him. I can't even imagine the amount of bees, wasps, and hornets Madame Web is going to be able to command once she's powered up. With another set of levels over, we've got Morlun dropping by once again since his servants are failing, except this time, he looks to take out and devour our OG Amazing Spider-Man. We can have Morlun even more powerful since his fight with Symbiote Spider, and since our OG does not have the power that Black does, he would obviously be outclassed. That is, until he asks the other Spider-Man for help through Madam Web's telepathy. He can ask Spectacular Spider-Man for any help about what happened during his fight with him, and then he could mention how Morlun doesn't have good awareness, and he could be led into a trap. Amazing Spider-Man is known for his platforming and environmental gameplay, which makes him the perfect Spider-Man to try out this theory against Morlun, throwing tons of different objects in order to catch Morlun off guard and stagger him and eventually lure him into one big trap where dozens of objects are zipped towards Morlun, piling all over him and allowing the Spider-Man the space he needs to properly escape. With that interaction over, we're now into a whole new phase and 5 more levels left to tackle, and it looks like our 616 Peter shift isn't over just yet.
I am Spider-Man.
I've always wondered what it would feel like to kill an Avenger.
Who better to put our classic Spidey skills to the test than the Taskmaster, the foe who has many a run-in with Peter in the past and is able to memorize and learn anyone's fighting style just by watching them. This can add some real unique elements in this level and boss fight, like him using Spider-Man's fighting animation, and perhaps once he's powered up he can use the fighting style of the other 4 Spider-Men. This also sets 616 Peter up to put his unique level style to skill by using the environment to his advantage in order to take down the Taskmaster, and I can see some really dynamic elements and set pieces in this level, like the sniper scope in Kraven's level.
I am Spider-Man.
Besides Juggernaut, there was one other character that sorely stuck out in the last game, and that was the merc with a mouth himself, Deadpool. Deadpool being in this game was a pleasant surprise, as he's not a foe of Spider-Man and he's not even really a villain, he's an anti-hero. He was a great inclusion though, as his level and boss fight were some of the best in the game, and he of course had some great interactions and voice lines. But we can't bring him back for this game. Now, who's a well-known anti-hero who has a connection with Spider-Man and would make for some great interactions in this game? Well, if you know anything about me as a person, you of course know that I'm talking about my boy Moon Knight. He has teamed up with Spider-Man plenty of times and has been antagonistic towards him before, even being a full-on villain in one of Spider-Man's issues, meaning he has the perfect connection to be a villain for a level in this game. Watching the interactions between them and the eventual battle with a full moon-powered Moon Knight battling a more deadly symbiote suit Spider-Man. You can even have them fight with the full moon full on in the background as a unique backdrop. Watching Moon Knight switch between his altered personalities and seeing how different they are in and out of gameplay could be really fun too. You can even do something similar from Deadpool's level, like each personality splits, leaving 4 Moon Knights you have to take on. Or you could do something different and new, like Moon Knight growing more and more unraveled as the fight continues, as he's having trouble controlling the power of the tablet. And you can even have Khonshu come in as a cameo, or better yet, an enemy that helps Moon Knight, or a boss of his own.
I am Spider-Man.
The question is, how do I control it? Isolate it.
It's Morbin time.
Who better to tangle with Noir in his 3rd level than a world-famous, renowned household Spider-Man villain who just had a recent movie that made him more $1 billion? Oh yeah, it's Morbin time, baby! Because Morbius would be a perfect villain for Noir in this game. His level would have cannibalistic elements similar to Vulture in the last game, and imagine the jump scare you can get on the close-up to Morbius' face. And I don't believe Morbius has even made it into a Spider-Man game yet, which is absolutely insane to think about, so let's finally fix that. Who better to fit in Noir's monotone, darker, past aesthetic than a literal Dracula himself? Well, actually, Morbius isn't Dracula. Dracula himself is a separate and very powerful character in the Marvel Universe. You can have time stealth segments where you have to get innocents to a certain area before Morbius feasts on them. And during his boss fights, you can have one across Morbius stacked upon a pile of bodies and have him occasionally begin feasting on the bodies in order to get power or health back. If this is too dark, simply just have him, I don't know, absorb their soul or something a la Shang Tsung. Morbius has the perfect background and look to fit in with Noir's universe and absolutely terrify our players of the game.
I am Spider-Man.
No. Wait.
Wait!
Barring one more anti-hero from the Marvel catalog, we've got Punisher. And not just any Punisher, but Punisher 2099. And that man will fuck you up in French. Rather than chasing your villain down like a lot of 2099's levels and levels in general, imagine being overwhelmed by the sheer visceral ruthlessness of Jacob Gallows, causing you to even have to free fall away from him, giving you a unique view as you're actually trying to make a tactical retreat against Frank before he bombs a whole building or something. If you throw him in an enclosed area with us too, like a building or something, as we try and keep him out of sight and stick to hit and run tactics to whittle him down, it could really paint Punisher as the unexpected ammunition powerhouse of the game.
I am Spider-Man.
What's so funny?
Damn, Miles. For a skinny-ass kid, you hit hard.
You had to know once Miles was announced as a character in this game that the Prowler wouldn't be too far behind him as one of the villains. You may be surprised about the fact that he isn't Miles' final villain, but don't worry, I've got big plans for Miles' next and last level. There's a lot of different stuff that you could play around with during this fight. You can have Prowler and Miles figure out each other's identities during the level and have the Prowler decide to give up the fight at the end of the level and deny Morland's offer, or even have Prowler still decide to strike down Miles because of Morland's promise, like power or some bullshit like that, causing him even further damage to Miles' psyche. Remember, he's fresh off watching his mentor get devoured by Morland. You can even play around with the structure of the level, like having it as one long drawn out boss fight rather than mowing down enemies and then fighting the boss under the usual Shattered Dimensions formula. A fist fight leading to a stealth section where you use stealth to take down Prowler, leading to a stealth section where he tries to take you out using stealth, even leading to a final battle with both of you unmasked depending on what route you choose for their relationship. The next section naturally should lead to Noir being face to face with Morland. This one should be fairly straightforward considering Noir's whole thing is using stealth and his surroundings to his advantage. Towards the end, you can have the player or Noir knock down Morland into a barrel, leaking radioactive liquid, causing Morland great pain since that is his main weakness in the comics, causing Morland to retreat.
I am Spider-Man.
I know whose face is behind that mask.
We all wear masks, Spider-Man. But which one is real? The one that hides your face, or the one that is your face?
You may be confused. Wait, you said it yourself that we weren't using repeated characters and Green Goblin was used in the last game. No. Green Goblin wasn't. Goblin was. And those two are extremely different that they might as well count as different characters. And there's no way we're not gonna have Spider-Man's arguably most iconic villain present in one of these games. If you still have a problem with that, then you could hold a cold one. There's a lot you could do with this level. You can make things extremely personal between these two. High-speed chases with Goblin on his glider and dodging pumpkin bombs and dealing with all of Green Goblin's maniacal shenanigans. There are tons of references you could do as well too. Many different iterations of Spider-Man in this level could be referenced. Tobey's iconic dodge, a set piece with the Statue of Liberty to reference No Way Home, dodging his glider and using it to attack him, and best of all, I don't know if this is possible or what you'd use to explain this, but when Goblin uses the tablet at the end of the level, have him turn into the Red Goblin. And now for the first time in a proper game on console, we have to throw down with the deadly Red Goblin.
I am Spider-Man.
It may be a bit of a weird choice to have this relatively obscure villain be the final level for Blackie Spidey, but if you want something that could bring the firepower to take him down, then look no further. Silvermane's whole shtick is that he just likes to turn himself into a robot, replacing limb by body part with mechanical parts in order to combat Spider-Man. Remember what Hammerhead did in Spider-Man PS4's DLC? Yeah, he was basically Silvermane. He
Kiss me through the phone.
He copied my whole fucking flow.
Oh,
word for word,
shit.
bar for bar.
Oh,
don't act like I didn't.
It would be great to see Silvermane's evolution as the level progresses, as he slowly becomes more and more machine and becomes more difficult to fight until he is fully robotic besides his head and uses the tablet for an extra boost. It'd be equally cool to see what unique ways we could take him down, and we can even have Silver Sable pop back in as a supporting player like she was in Juggernaut's level, in order to help us take out her dad, who she realizes has become too far gone and crossed the line now.
I am Spider-Man.
Get the chopper ready. I won't be long. I'm surprised you made it this far. But your foolishness ends now.
Kingpin is growing and growing on the list of Spider-Man's most popular villains, so let's acknowledge that with him as Noir's final villain, the man who hired Hammerhead and Chameleon to take him down and force Morbius to attack him. Imagine the sheer fear and atmosphere Kingpin's power and demeanor could cause, and you could use his building as the set piece for the whole level. A group of thugs hired by Kingpin looking to take out Noir, causing him to take a visit to Kingpin's tower from the bottom floor all the way to the top floor where you can fight Kingpin at the top and end his tyranny. This set piece adds for unique elements like kidnapped civilians that you have to save. Kingpin knocks out the route to the next floor, causing you to web crawl on the outside of the tower until eventually you are caught and retreat back inside into another stealth section, until you finally reach Kingpin and have to use a mixture of stealth and a full-on assault in order to combat his immense strength and power, and his cane.
I am Spider-Man.
Venom would have made for a great overarching villain in Morland's place in this game, and I actually spent a long time deciding what I should do. But since Venom is either the main villain or at the very least a prominent figure in a lot of Spider-Man media, and Morland's on the opposite side of the spectrum, I ultimately decided to go with Morland. But that doesn't mean he shouldn't be present at all in this game. Venom 2099 is a force to be reckoned with, and since Venom is in a lot of media with few changes besides his host usually, using the 2099 version should add a unique shakeup to add new things and keep things fresh in the game. A showdown between Miguel and Venom sounds absolutely badass, and you can have elements of 2099's fight with Scorpion in the last game and the symbiote's fight with Carnage in order to create something really special in this level, especially with Venom 2099's acidic spit laying waste to everything like Scorpion did. Having a free-falling section where every time you think you're gonna hit the end, Venom spits on the floor, causing you to have to fall and fall further until you reach the end of the level, where you use sound or fire or something of sort to temporarily separate Kron's stone from the symbiote, or just to where his body is exposed, allowing 2099 to bite into Kron's stone, paralyzing him until the symbiote eerily rises again, controlling his body, and Miguel really has to find some proper way to take him down.
I am Spider-Man.
You may ask, who is Ultimatum and why is he gonna be the final villain for Miles? Well, he's Miles. Miles from the original 616 universe, who actually traveled to Miles' original universe in 1610 and stole tech and weapons from the Ultimates in that universe, like Iron Man's gauntlets and pin particles that he used to try and take out Peter Parker in his original universe. This makes him the perfect villain for Miles, because in a game focused on multiverses, who more fitting to be the final hurdle than you yourself? And since Ultimatum has got different powers and weapons, it means this wouldn't simply be a mirror match between two Spider-Men. Imagine Miles' reaction when after his Peter dies and he's forced to fight his uncle, he now has to combat himself, using the weapons and gadgets of the same heroes that he looks up to in his universe. You can give Ultimatum everything here to make him extremely fun or annoying to fight. Let him shrink and grow like Ant-Man, fly and shoot repulsor blasts like Iron Man, and have him pull out Captain America's shield, and maybe even have him use webs and also tech from the Tinkerer and the Prowler as well to really mess with Miles mentally. This would be perfect to help Miles' growth throughout the game and help him realize and learn that he really is ready to be Spider-Man and take down Morland whether he wants to or not, because with Peter gone, he is the hero that his universe needs to make sure he never ends up like the Miles that he just faced. With Ultimatum defeated, Miles realizes that since everyone else has had their run-in with Merlin, it's now his turn. He prepares for Morland's arrival and gets a pep talk from each Spider-Man in the game. Yes, even Miguel, although a reference or even having them normally interact like they did in Spiderverse until 2099 finally warms up to him here would be a nice touch. They remind him, use your surroundings, and he doesn't like radiation. Moreland arrives and this becomes one last test for the player before the final level, using Miles' stealth and venom, along with his basic attacks and interactables in order to keep Moreland at bay. During the level, Moreland comments on eating Miles' original Peter, causing Miles to grow emotional and leading him to forget the plan and charge Moreland head on, almost losing his life, until the other Spider-Men bring him back to reality, leading Miles to lure Moreland to whatever radiation trap he set to really see if Moreland is actually weak to radiation. Remember, the team chemistry was really the only thing absent from last game, and I really want to drive that home in this game. Miles fends him off and Moreland retreats, and with his weaknesses learned, the 5 Spider-Men decide it's time to take down Moreland once and for all. The Spider-Man use his weaknesses to their advantage and prep for one final battle. They figure out how to weaponize radiation like Peter actually did in the comics in order to fight on equal grounds with Moreland. For this, you can even give each Spidey a new original suit that is covered with radiation in order to harm Moreland. This could really drive home the point that they have become a team now, and with their suits and their game plan ready, Moreland invites them to his realm, daring them to try and defeat him, and all 5 Spidey meet face to face for the first time in Loom World, Moreland's home.
I am Spider-Man.
This is a perfect backdrop for a final battle in the game, and this could start off with a mini-boss for each Spider-Man where they each single-handedly take down a member of Moreland's family, the Inhibitors, before all moving on to him and teaming on him together. I'm thinking you could have it where you manually swap between each Spider-Man, and at different points of time, Moreland is weak to one Spider-Man, causing you to have to switch and find out and learn which Spider-Man to attack with. And since I plan on this last level being difficult, if you are low health with one Spider-Man, you could switch to another in order to get your health back with the other Spider-Man. Finally, the Spider-Man take him down, retrieve the tablets, and web him up. Madam Web thanks them, and Miles thanks them for helping and sticking together with him and teaching him about great power and responsibility. Each Spider-Man gives him a talk, telling him what it means to be Spider-Man or telling him what keeps them going. They share one last interaction, quip or whatever, and we hear Stan Lee's same final speech from the last game to finally send us off. And with that ends my Shattered Dimension 2 ideas. And sure, there would be alternate costumes and trophies and unlockables, but this video is long enough as it is, and I think if I were to go in depth with that here, this video wouldn't drop for another 3 months. With that said, this video took a lot of time, research, and rewrites, and a lot of fan fiction to make. I mean, seriously, at some of these points I felt like deleting the whole video and just uploading this story to Wattpad. I am not a game developer or a writer, but regardless, this is exactly what I would want to see in a sequel. Like I said, this video took a lot of effort to make, so please show me some love by liking, commenting, or subscribing if you enjoyed anything I talked about here, or if you just like Spider-Man. This was something different from my usual game time videos, so if you enjoyed this different take on my series and would like to see more of it, please let me know down below. And with all that, true believers, remember, with great power comes great responsibility.